Alrighty, so I'm here with Justin, and Justin and I have been working together here for the past 4 months now, and we're going to take some time here just to speak about what are some things we've been covering over these past 4 months, because I know this can be really powerful stuff for people. So to begin, man, like a lot of people watching this video, of course, aren't going to know who you are or what it is that you do. So we can start there. Who are you and what are some things that you're working on at the moment?
Sure. So I run a marketing agency, which I've kind of basically passivized at the moment, kind of shifting into personal development stuff. And you've really kind of helped me pinpoint what exactly it is that I want to do and kind of format that. So yeah, I mean, right now it's kind of right where I'm at.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and so yeah, I know you have a few different things you're working on at the moment, but the marketing agency seems to be the focus, right?
Yeah, I mean, definitely it has been the focus of the last 4 or 5 years. Um, and we're just kind of being able to pivot from that. So getting a little bit of my life back from that hustle.
Nice, man. Yeah. And thinking back to like 4 months ago here, and even before that, like back in January, December, we're having some conversations over DMs. Like,
Mm.
what was the main reason that you say would like that you wanted to hop on board here and work together one to one?
I guess it was just a big part of it is that I knew you at least a little bit. We kind of went to high school together and stuff. So like I knew you were a real person. A lot of people who like are in this kind of online marketing space, self-development space, there's just this like kind of fake energy that comes with a lot of
Yeah.
that. And so I knew at least, that you weren't a robot that was printed out by Microsoft or something.
Hmm.
Um, but also, just the way that you were putting things was like the way that you frame things is easily understood for me, and so I could connect with your content. So that was kind of a big thing for me is that you weren't, really just saying a bunch of woo woo shit. You were kind of blending, um, I guess, kind of almost what is spirituality and just kind of science and actual practice, in a nice way. So.
Dope, man. Yeah. And hopping on board, was there a specific focus? Was there like something that you wanted to focus on? Like, what was the main idea of hopping on board and really like investing
Yeah,
in
I mean,
yourself with this?
I think at the time I was just kind of in a spot where I was like, I don't really know exactly what I want to do with myself. I just know that I
Yeah.
want to continue, kind of developing where I'm going, but kind of just looking for an outside opinion that I could actually like trust, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that I could actually like talk to somebody who kind of more or less kind of knows what they're doing or is experienced in these kind of things.
Hmm.
Often you don't find that in people in your day-to-day life where it's just like, you can get opinions from people, but like how qualified are they to actually really help you out? So
Yeah.
just kind of having somebody who is, intelligent to kind of bat things around with for one is really helpful.
Hmm. Nice. And it seemed like from when we were talking and from when we started working together, it seemed like the biggest thing was that purpose aspect of it. Or you've been working on this agency, like you mentioned, for the past like 4 or 5 years,
Mm.
and you've wanted to pivot into something that maybe brings you a little more meaning or a little more purpose. Like
Yeah, for sure.
what is that what does that look like for you now? Or like what are some things you have discovered in that realm?
Definitely, doing that the class that we've been talking about, which is, just kind of doing like a self-development class, helping people get in touch with who they are, from kind of a spiritual level, where you actually want to be in life, kind of just developing people into, I guess, what they actually deep down want to be. That's like the biggest thing for me. Whether it's, becoming a millionaire or just having a family or healing some traumas or whatever it might be, just whatever it is that we need to do to make you the version of yourself that you would like to be right now, so that's kind of the goal.
Hmm. Yeah, man. And it's like when we talk about that purpose side of things, and I had the same experience with my digital marketing agency as well, where I was working on it for about a year and a half.
Mm,
And then I just reached a point where I knew I could be serving people at a higher level. And it's like when you see that or you just get like a glimpse of that, you can't go back, right?
right,
It's like
right.
you just can't unsee that. Um, so it just becomes this 100% necessary thing to pivot a little bit into something that is more aligned with you, right? Is more intuitively you. So, um, with these past 4 months as well, when we think about anywhere from personal, professional, spiritual results and insights there, what are some of the benefits or some of the results that come to mind that you've seen from having these one-to-one sessions?
Sure. So, I mean, really the biggest thing is just kind of creating that space to kind of promote these ideas and kind of dive within yourself, with having that kind of that other person's energy to kind of bounce things off of.
Hmm.
A lot of things that you kind of wind up thinking about and wind up digging into, you don't just doesn't it doesn't just pop into your head while you're by yourself or while you're having, just kind of the random conversations that you have throughout the day. But when you're actually dedicating time and space to your self development and you have somebody kind of shaping that, or just kind of even just simply providing that space for it, um you just go deeper into what what it is that you want, what it is that you want to be, and it just gets you thinking about those things presently.
Hmm.
Um, so I think, kind of without having a space for that, it could be difficult, not impossible, but difficult to just really get to the root of some of those issues, and
Yeah.
it helps you build momentum as well. So it's another
Yeah.
huge thing.
And when you talk about figuring out what you want, what does that look like for you moving forward here?
So
You,
for me,
yeah.
yeah, it would definitely be, kind of working on this class, doing self-development stuff. Probably I want to start doing like YouTube content, TikTok content, all sorts of things like that. Immediately what I'm doing is just studying. I've just been studying everything that is out there currently, best approaches, different kind of methods for getting out there. Really, just the biggest thing for me right now is figuring out how to refine and communicate these kind of messages in a way that most people are going to understand. Because yeah, I mean, I can talk all day and then I'll make perfect sense to myself, but
Yeah.
but there's so many people in the world, you have to pay attention to how you articulate things. So that's really what I'm working on, is just the kind of grinding out the best ways to communicate these kind of messages to people. And then once I've kind of felt like I've got a really good grasp on that and what my best approach is, I'll, just kind of start hitting it hard, making content and kind of creating the guidelines for what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely phases to that process, you know.
Mm,
Um, and that articulating things in a way for people for it to make sense. That can be like the trickiest part of this work, right? Because
yeah, yeah, for
when we
sure.
talk about purpose, when we talk about meaning, when we talk about breaking down limiting beliefs, when we talk about redefining your self-concept and the way that you look at yourself, like there's no number you can put on that.
Right, right.
There's no way to like quantify that. So,
Yeah.
man, when we think about using content and like creating a course like you're doing, it's like being able to articulate that for people to make sense. That's just an interesting craft in itself. Um, because it seems like there's just a lot of confusion with this work sometimes. You get getting kind of lost in the weeds or like too complex with things and not meeting people halfway with it. But I think that
Right.
the biggest like artistry of this is meeting people halfway, you know?
Right.
Um,
Right. That really
but
is where the art is for sure.
yeah. And one of the things you mentioned in there, and you mentioned this on another call too. One of the things you mentioned was when it comes to the coaching or meeting with someone one to one, you mentioned
Mm.
this before where you said you felt like things were being expedited. Or in other words, you mentioned like things were happening at a faster pace, which
Yeah.
in my experience too, like I've had the same thing working with coaches where the best word that I can put to it is just that feeling of things moving at hyperspeed, right? So
Mm.
could you go a little deeper on that and explain what you mean by that for yourself? Or was there certain results that came? Was there certain things that happened in your experience that
Yeah.
like what made you say that? Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, so for me it would just be, like I kind of do the diving within myself kind of on my own time as well, but just having that dialogue with somebody else, and just kind of the other little techniques that have come. It really feels like that, kind of just like I said a minute ago, like the space that we create here allows for kind of rapid self growth in a way where
Mhm.
you're actively taking time each week to pay attention to your growth, to yourself, and kind of sharing that with another person. And so it's like it's puts a magnifying glass on what you're doing, because sometimes people, are either spending no time or very little time on, on actual self growth, doing that kind of work.
Mhm.
And so when you get together with another person and you make a task out of it, just like, cleaning the weeds out of a garden. If you only spend 3 seconds on it every 6 months, it's never really gets
Mhm.
done. But when, you get another person with you and you spend an hour every week, it's done in no time, So it's the same kind of idea. Um, but yeah, really just having that space for being able to bounce ideas off of each other
Yeah.
is really, really impactful. It's in a way that's hard to explain. It just promotes a certain type of energy that allows for these kind of thoughts to come through and these kind of realizations to come through. And it's kind of all, it's all within the mind. So it's really just the types of thoughts that you have throughout the day after, doing one of these calls that is kind of a higher vibration. It's like you're at a higher
Mhm.
frequency when you're paying attention to these kind of things. And so, getting together with somebody who is also at kind of that higher vibration kind of expedites that, or enforces, promotes, elevates, that kind of thinking. And so, like after one of these calls, I probably have a lot more just kind of thought based around what I actually want spiritually, mentally, physically, whatever it is, for the rest of the day at least. And it just
Mhm.
kind of provides like an anchor to, not let you forget in a way. Every week we do this call. And
Yeah.
so it's not just like, oh, 3 months have gone by and I've not paid any attention to my actual growth, so
Mhm.
it's really beneficial to be doing this that way.
Yeah, and it feels like for me that boomerang effect too, and that mirror effect, where just having this space sometimes you just get things reflected back at you
Mm,
through your own language that you wouldn't have heard before for some reason, or just having it being able to speak it and then hearing yourself. It's almost like you understand it at a deeper level, and you can understand why you're doing things the way that you are, or why you fear something. there's a limiting belief that comes up. Um,
Right. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah, it
100%.
it ties back to that, expedited effect, or like that hyperspeed effect. Um, Another thing is, I believe you mentioned at one point that you've never done any type of coaching before. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. What was your biggest surprise, do you think, in working together one to one here? Or what
I
was
mean, I
something
wouldn't.
unexpected? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I went into it pretty open, I guess. Just, like the effect that it's had was pretty surprising. I wasn't really sure what I was going to get out of it, or if kind of talking to somebody else was going to really provide me any sort of help. I think really just, and I'll say it probably over and over again throughout the course of this call, it's just providing that space to discuss where you want to go in life, and where you are currently, and what might be challenging you, and what new habits you need to form. All of these things that kind of fall into self growth. Just having that space to do it. Um, wasn't something that I was really previously aware of before I kind of, had the space to do that. So, um, I guess that's been kind of the biggest surprise, is just how impactful creating that time for yourself can be.
Yeah. One of the things I'm big on too is, and we've talked about this many times before, is when we have a goal we're working towards, and there's those painful things that come up, whether that's fear, uncertainty, doubt, usually like in that pain, that's where the gold lies, right? Because for
For
some
sure.
reason, when we fear something, there's that message being communicated to us there that there's something to take care of there, or there's something to look at.
Right.
And I remember, I remember one of the calls, you know, we had together, we were talking about this identity, or in order for you to get to that next level, or that new person, right? That new version of you who's
Mm.
designing this course, also has their digital marketing work on the side, but is moving into more meaningful work. Um, can you talk about that shift a little bit, and that shift of identity? Because I remember the one call, we identified a habit that wasn't necessarily serving you anymore. But to sum it up, it felt like this loss of identity, that it was that old identity trying to hold on and stay relevant.
Mm.
And there was that tension there between moving to this new identity. So could you talk a little bit more about that shift of identity, or some of those maybe more painful things that have come up along the way here?
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, really, really a lot of what motivated me to begin with was just, essentially not having enough money to take care of the people that I needed to take care of, right? A lot of fear that if I didn't do something significant, like I needed to take care of my mom, I needed to take care of several other members of our family that weren't doing too well. And there was just like, and as well as myself, like I had this fear that like if I had to work a day job, for some corporation until I was 70 and then retire, like I would rather die today than know that I had to do that. So it was really motivating, and it was really good to, kind of get me off my ass and get me moving. But that kind of fear, really just even well beyond, being successful and not needing to worry about those kinds of things, just kind of stayed there, under the surface. And it's what pressured me to, I used that to pressure me to move like every day, for years, and so there's a point where, it's like motivation through fear is not necessarily healthy, right? Like it's sure, it's a good motivator, it'll get you moving. You don't want to get eaten by the lion, you run.
Yeah.
But there's no lion. Like the lion is not in the room with us.
Hmm.
Yeah, so there's no need to run so hard anyway. And so trying to find a way to balance that, a way to kind of recognize like we can come out of fight or flight mode, we can chill out a little bit, you can relax, you can breathe,
Hmm.
that's been really a huge rewiring for my brain. Because it's proved so useful for so long. And my brain knows that, right? Like it knows that hustle, run or you're gonna die has worked for us, right? And so why throw that away? Like you need that. And so yeah, in a way it did, kind of just like become part of my mentality, and just like really if you dive deep enough into it, it was just like make money or die, like
Yeah.
what it says at the core. And you pile so much subliminal other shit over the top of it that you don't notice that that's what you're telling yourself every morning.
Yeah.
Um, and so kind of when really start digging into this kind of stuff, you start figuring out what that is. And then, once you get to the root of that, it's like, well, I'm living in fear and I'm doing better than a very large portion of the population, and so why? You know what I mean? So, um, financially anyway, as far as, at that time specifically when I was really grinding, mental health was pretty shit. Physical health was pretty shit. Eating habits were shit. Everything was bad as far as like, really just anything other than money goes.
Mhm.
So doing this work kind of allowed me to dive into that, even though I'd kind of already begun to, but it really helped me get to understanding kind of where that came from and kind of introduce some new habits to kind of try and pivot it. It really put, a magnifying glass on, this is why I'm behaving this way. And there's good reasons for it. But I would like to have a different program running.
Mhm.
So it was really just that kind of discovery of wanting to redefine kind of a subliminal script that was running in my brain, right?
Right.
Um, that would lead to more peace and happiness and just general fulfillment. And so, kind of analyzing that, you start to analyze why you did what you did in the first place. Like I'm in this marketing company. Is this really what I want to do? Is this really what's making me happy? Or is this the legs that I'm using to run from being poor? Right. And is that just it?
Hmm.
And, so like it's fulfilling. I did enjoy my work to an extent, but I definitely kind of began to discover that there was something much more meaningful that I would, prefer to be doing. And now that I've kind of gone through all of that grind, I have the time and the energy to be able to engage in that. So it's kind of right where we are.
Man, that's really good. That's so special. Because when you're talking about that hustle mentality and that thing that's driven you for so long, and like you're doing great financially, you have these things, but you still feel that program running, right?
Yeah.
Where it's
Right.
like that's where we get into the self-concept. Like that's at the identity level, right? We
Mm-hmm.
think that like once we get the results out here, then we're good. But like you mentioned, like you still felt that program running.
Right.
So
Right.
it's like, what is that? It's that thing that stems from that inner story that we're telling ourselves and those seeds that we've planted for so long. Like
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
still a harvest like growing from those
Yeah.
seeds, right? There's
It's like
still
roots running through your brain, and you have to untangle them in order to get a new kind of frame of consciousness, a new frame of just the way that your subliminal like mind is set is just like you wake up in that state of being and you don't even know that you're in it really. You just start doing the things that come with being in it. And so it's like, it's like when somebody if you flinch when somebody throws a punch at you, it's like learning to not.
yeah,
you know?
exactly. That's a great analogy. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean like on surprise too, not if you're ready for it, like just don't ever flinch at anything that comes at your face. So yeah, that's definitely it's just like taking the roots and just pulling them back out through your brain and trying to water a new seed at the same time. And you kind of have
Yeah.
to do them both at the same time in order for it to really work. But yeah, yeah, it really does. It gets you in a way that you don't notice until you're really doing that kind of self work, until you actually like pull your head out of it for a second and you can do that reflection where it's like, wow, for the last 3 years, I've been eating cheeseburgers and like, going on like 5 hours of sleep, working 16-hour days. And like, yeah, I'm doing well, but like, I'm going to die soon, probably. So and if you don't identify that, notice it, and kind of realize that it's a problem. It's as cliche as it sounds. They say step one of any self-help is realizing you've got an issue, and a lot of people with a lot of things won't ever realize kind of what they're doing. And so again, kind of pivoting into why this is beneficial, is it's just it really gets your brain kind of flowing around
hmm
about things that you might be doing that you might not have even noticed that are not helping you or that you would like to change, even if they're not detrimental.
hmm Man, this is so important for people to understand too, because there's a book that gets talked a lot about in this space. It's called Think and Grow Rich, but
Mm,
the title of that book is perfect for what that book talks about and for what we're talking about here, because
mm,
it really is like that. It's when you ruminate on those thoughts, on those habits for long enough of rushing,
mm,
of always going, right? You're literally planting those seeds in your mind there. So recognizing when those conscious thoughts come up or those seeds sprout, you recognize those seeds that you've been planting. So it's really about planting new seeds in your mind, telling yourself a different story. And when you go from telling yourself that, oh, I do have enough time, when you've always been telling yourself for how many years that you don't have enough time, like that feels weird as shit, right?
you're right. Right.
So,
Right. So
so
slow down. It feels like you're stepping into a different reality.
yeah, it's a weird transition, but over time, you continue to change that story, and ruminate on that story and that message and those feelings of what it actually feels like to have enough time. You begin to plant
Mm,
those seeds, which you'll experience the results from as well.
mm,
Um, so yeah, thanks for sharing that stuff there. Like super important concept right there.
for sure.
Um, so to pivot a little bit, with my one-to-one program that I'm doing here, when you think of the past 4 months, what are some improvements do you think that could be made? Or yeah, I guess we can start with there. What comes to mind in terms of improvements or doing things a little differently?
Let's think about that a little bit. I think you could add kind of a layer of something kind of like what I'm going to be doing. Kind of some you do a lot of YouTube content, which is really good. Um, I think you could add kind of grouping a lot of those videos together and almost kind of like finding a way to kind of incorporate those into some sort of assignments. So it's
Yeah,
more personal for you and your coaching. I think that would actually be pretty beneficial because a lot of the things that you talk about on YouTube are good. Um, but if you kind of group them into like a chapter almost and kind of based maybe like a week of work around certain different topics, depending on what your client is, kind of dealing with or after. But you've got so much content that like using that as a tool while you're coaching as well, I think would be a pretty huge thing.
100%. Yeah. I I appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Um,
But as far as the way that like you actually, you run through the calls and stuff like that, I think it's great. I don't think that there's really necessarily anything that I can think of that I would change with how you do your calls, and how you do the direct coaching. It's really solid. It definitely takes, the right individual to get out of it what they need to get out of it. Like you're not just going to solve everybody's problems just by having a face and showing up. You have to be open and willing to discuss things that you wouldn't just discuss with a random stranger on the street, right? Or maybe
mhm.
your mom or whoever else. You really just have to drop the whole mask and just show up as who you are. Otherwise, like what are you doing?
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, it definitely takes the right person, but as far as the actual one-on-one coaching goes, I think really for if anybody just showed up and was vulnerable and being themselves truly, you'd get benefit out of it.
100%. Awesome, man. Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for that feedback. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Um, so to finish up here, last question. If someone was on the fence and maybe they've been watching my content a little bit, maybe they've been having some questions on this. If someone's on the fence
Mm.
and thinking about hopping on board, what would you say to that person?
I mean, I guess personally, it really depends on where you are in life. Do you want to dedicate space to, of kind of evolving yourself? Do you want to do that right now? Um, because that's as simple as the answer is yes or no. Do you feel like you can dedicate time right now to growing yourself? Are you in enough pain to want to change yet? You know, and even if you're not, because like we kind of when we first came into this, I wasn't necessarily like, oh, my life is hell. I need different things, it's pretty good for the most part. But the thing about doing this kind of work is you start to understand things that you weren't necessarily aware were kind of hurting your state of mind or your physical health. So yeah, it's really just how much do you actually want to, get into this work and grow. You can definitely do it on your own, but I can definitely attest to it being pretty helpful to have somebody to talk to kind of along the way.
Hmm.
So,
Awesome.
so yeah, simple as that, man. How bad
Yeah.
do you want to be different?
Hmm.
How bad do you want
Yeah.
to make your brain work different? It's not even just be different, but it's such a complicated thing to say
Yeah.
because it's not like you need to change. It's not like you need to change who you are, but it's just a reframing of who you are.
Hmm.
And analyzing yourself and being in this space where you can analyze yourself is invaluable. It really is priceless. So really to anybody who would be, kind of on the fence or considering, I would say just do it. If you can do it, just do it.
Yeah, and that commitment on the other side is, is so important with the person who has something in mind for themselves, they have a goal for themselves. Um, Committing to that process is just such an important part of that. Um, but yeah, man, awesome. So, is there any last things you'd like to say? One of the things I like to say is, of course, always appreciate hopping on calls with you, and really
Mm.
appreciate the past 4 months here. It's been a pleasure. So, is there
Yeah,
anything
it's been
else
great.
that you want to say?
No, man, I think we pretty much covered it. It's really been great working with you, over the time that we have. It hasn't even felt like 4 months, but we've gone into just so many deep topics, and I really have identified quite a bit about just kind of the way that my mind works. And just the way that it is in this space, it's not like you're prescribing me things about it. It's almost like you and another person together are kind of uncovering things about yourself. You're making the realizations on your own. You're not like just go touch grass for 30 minutes a day and you're
Hmm.
gonna serotonin. It's like a mutual kind of uncovering. And so when you find these things out, you find them out for yourself, and it's not you haven't made me realize anything. We've kind of realized things together. You know what I mean? Throughout the kind of the collective of the mutual energy, just kind of engaging. So
Hmm.
that's really the biggest thing. And it's just insanely beneficial to take the time and the space to do that. So
Hmm. Awesome, man. Well, yeah, I know this call will be super valuable for people. So I appreciate it.
awesome.